Hey everybody, this is Matt Graham and I'm coming to you from On the Trail with Matt and Sarah, and just want to give you some tips today on how to set up a flat tarp, because it really is one of the most versatile shelters that you can pack out into the wilderness. And so inside here I've got a flat tarp. And this tarp is this is made by Hyperlight, which is an amazing company. They design ultralight tarps. This one's made out of a tough Cuban fiber. And it's 10 by 8, but it's still very lightweight. It weighs about 10 ounces. So that's 10 feet by 8 feet in dimensions. And tarps they're really amazing. If you don't have the time to build a natural shelter, a wiki-up or something like that, the cool thing about a tarp is you can set it up in a variety of configurations. And in a pinch, if you got caught out in a rainstorm, if you're out hiking or something, you can use it like a cape. So if you're out walking, you can put it over, even if you had a backpack on or something like that, just wrap it around you. And a lot of times when you're out wandering about, sometimes rain only comes in for 20 minutes, half an hour at a time, so you can just kind of curl up and keep walking by. People might look at you funny, but it allows you to travel light and not carry an extra rain jacket. So you have the versatility of that. And then, for example, if you didn't have the time to configure it into one of the tarp configurations I'm going to show you here, you can also just wrap up into it. So it acts a lot like an emergency space blanket. And a lot of people are familiar with that because it has that reflective surface that, a lot of people say that'll keep you warm because they say it reflects 90% of your body heat. But the reality is our body heat, it's not necessarily a mirror. And trust me, I'm coming to you from experience. I've used a lot of space blankets over the years, trying them out. I've used them in conditions below freezing up at 13,000 feet. The thing with the space blanket is it definitely keeps you warmer than having nothing at all, and probably does keep you slightly warmer than even a tarp, but not very much. So this is an option for an emergency. You can take something like this and simply wrap up into it, with your clothing, and more layers you can get over yourself, the better. And the key with anything like this, whether it's a space blanket or a tarp, you have to remember it does not breathe. So that means basically what happens is our bodies actually produce over a pint of condensation per night. So that means that's going to get pretty wet by morning. So you want to, when the night is early and young, you want to keep it a little more ventilated. And then as the night gets colder, you want to wrap up into it. So there's kind of a progression to it. Now, let's say you're actually using this for a shelter. So the cool thing is, there's a bunch of ways to string it up. And so with the Hyperlight tarps, what they have is these cool grommets. And let me grab some strings here. So when you get this all configured up, basically run the string in, just like that. And I usually leave the strings in. I just took them out for demonstration. These act as a draw cord, so when you stake it out, you can tighten it through that, and that's a really handy feature. It's better to have a pole tag like this because it's going to be stronger. But if you do buy one with a grommet, or that's all you can afford, and it rips out, there's also options. You can take something like a piece of bark or like a little river pebble, and you can make a little knot. I use a half fisherman's knot, which I'll just show you real quick. You can also look this up probably online. That creates kind of a slip knot there. So what you would do in this circumstance, I'll pull this out so you can see a little more clear. You can take that little river cobble or bark, take your slip knot, slide it over, and that creates a very strong grommet like that. So for a cheaper tarp and it's super windy, you're gonna find yourself doing this a lot. It's a good little trick to know about. So I'm gonna go ahead and string all these up, and then once I get those strung up, I'm gonna give you some ideas on how to configure a tarp like this. I'm gonna go ahead and show you a real basic setup that I like because it allows you to have an open view and have a fire in front of it too. So this is more of like a lean-to. So I'll go ahead and tie it up right here. Go ahead and pull this out. Now this is quite a big tarp, which is pretty nice. So you can see these draw cords here. Pull those up, make them nice and tight because I want this fairly close to the ground here. Now if you don't have stakes with it, you can make the stakes, but bringing them just allows the process to speed up a little bit faster. If you don't have string, you could take vines or even young saplings and shoots. But having these tools allows you to quickly erect it. Nice ground for stakes right here. That's not always the case. If you get to a situation where the ground's a little trickier to work with, what you can do, let me grab a stick here. Oh, there's one. You can take it and wrap it in a stick, just like that. And then find a heavy rock and you place it right in front of the stick there. This is a lighter rock than you normally use. I'm just showing you this quickly for demonstration, but you can tighten it by pulling that heavy rock back. So that's a good little trick to know if you don't have the stakes with you, or if the ground is super rocky and you just can't get the stakes in there, which happens quite a bit. Alright, so pull this a little tauter here. So that's kind of the basic shelter. Now what I like to do a lot of times, to find an overhead branch, take this and you pull it out a little bit tighter. It gives you a little bit more space underneath. I'll go ahead and do that real quick so you can see. Yeah, so you can see this opens up a lot of space in the tarp. Come back around here and look at this, voila. You've got beautiful space right here to hang out, sleep. You have a great view and you can place it in any direction you want. A lot of times what I like to do is place it to the east because I love to see the sunrise, especially if the prevailing winds are kind of coming either from the back or a little bit at an angle. And that brings up a important point. If I'm setting this up for more of a long-term shelter, what I might do is basically build a little rock wall right out in front of the shelter, about right here, just right on the outside, depending on the weather situations. If it's raining a lot, you might want to get it up a little higher and put it directly right on the edge. So building a rock wall about this high, and you'd have your fire right out in front. And what this does in this situation, it'll actually create a hot space in here. So even if the temperatures are down to like 30 degrees, you can actually warm up this space to a comfortable, just even shirtless weather, hanging out, just enjoying the fire, airing your stinky pits out, whatever you need to do. So this is a great thing, and it lights up the shelter too. So all this surface area becomes reflective for the firelight. And if you got a great book or something you want to enjoy, kick back and you can read it by the fire. Sometimes I'll lay back on the back side and just look, kind of tilt it by the fire and enjoy the read. And it makes a great place to hang out in areas that aren't too buggy, and you can relax, and it's a super shelter. Now ideally when you're having a fire, if the wind is coming from the backside, a lot of people may think that that's great, but what happens is you get sort of a back swirl effect that can happen and still blow the smoke in your face. Ideally what you want is the wind to come at either this corner or this corner, not directly across but slightly at an angle, and that'll just kind of gently push the smoke on the outside, so you'll be able to enjoy the light, the heat, without getting smoke in your face. So this is one configuration for long term when there's not a lot of wind. Now if it was really windy, I'll show you another one right here. For a situation where you got a lot of wind, the diamond shelter is really nice. Okay, so now take the stakes, pull this corner as tight as you can. This is actually a really quick shelter to set up, which makes it nice. And the windier it is, the lower, pounding rock here. The windier it is, the lower you want the shelter. And basically, you want to try to plan it so that the wind's coming in from this side, because the opening of the shelter, as you can see soon, is going to be over there. And so, once again, that's at its basic. If you can, it's always nice to get some tension on the top. Okay, and then depending on the situation, I mean, you've got all these options here, so you can move things around, open it up more, spend more time staking it out, but this is the very basic. And you see under here you've got tons and tons of space. Now it might not be tons of headroom, and there's a tendency to want to get that headroom, but when it's super windy or rain's blowing in, you want to get the shelter down as low as you can. And in a survival situation, this is a cool shelter because you can pack it with pine needles or debris and actually insulate the shelter as well, and kind of get more walls up here and keep more of the wind out. So this is an awesome shelter. The last one I'm going to show you is an A-frame shelter, and it has some advantages too for a survival situation. For the A-frame, I usually like to go the length of the shelter. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You know, you're basically building that classic A-frame shape that you think about, you know, a mountain cabin being or something like that. The only thing that's missing is a chimney and fireplace. That would be nice, huh? It's possible. You could put a little wood stove in there if you like. So that's one cool option. So I'll tie this up here. And like I said, you know, basically over time when you set up these tarps, the wind blows around, these cords, no matter how strong or how good they are, they stretch out and they move around. So the cool thing about this system is it allows you to tighten it right back up without having to do any sliding knots or fancy knots. Alright, so stake the corners at the very least once again. Always getting those corners down. Alright, so let's come around side, you can see what that looks like. So now you can see the classic A-frame, and a lot of people love a structure like this because it's just kind of reminds you of the classic tube tent. There's some nostalgia to something like this. And One cool thing about an A-frame structure, if you really stake all these down, these points, it allows you to really pack it in with insulation. So in a survival situation, when maybe you weren't able to get a fire started, but there was plenty of leaves or pine needles around to be insulated by, you can put up something like this, get it packed down, try to close up one side of it at the very least, and just pack it full of as much insulation as you possibly can. And then you have this nice bed to crawl inside and you're protected from both sides pretty well. So whether it's a survival situation or you just like camping under the stars, and sometimes you want to be protected from the rain but have that open sky view.